But yes, we're delighted today to have the legendary, and he's gone even more legendary now, Richard Rawlings. How are you, Richard? You okay?
I'm very good, thanks, Simon. Yeah, what interesting times, and exciting times as well. Great to see you looking so upbeat as ever with the bog rolls in the background. That's a good one.
It's the new currency. The new currency. So that's what we're doing with. We're looking there, and yes, ironic there that you say we live in interesting times, which of course is a Chinese curse. Which you could say this whole thing, isn't it? May we live in interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not getting into conspiracy theories. That's on another show.
I know, it's crazy. But I think what it has done, it's given us the gift of time. And the gift of time has allowed us to reconsider what we're all about on a very personal level, hasn't it? People have come down, they've been at home, they think, my God, what's going on? What does the future hold? Is life ever going to go back to normal? And if it doesn't, what am I going to do? So we've sort of had a reset of the clock, and has given us the opportunity to start afresh. And very often that day one thinking is really going to enable some fantastic opportunities.
And it genuinely, I mean, although it seems wrong to call it an opportunity, but it simply is a fact. This is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity to sit back and review your business without having to run your business at the same time, isn't it?
And how often do we do it? We all know we should be working on our business as much as in it, and we just don't seem to have time. This time has been foisted upon us, and it's actually been a really good thing. A really good thing. I've done some training myself in this time. I've become certified as a certified life coach as well, a well-being coach.
You were talking about that. That's well, maybe David will talk to you afterwards at that, because actually one of the things that he's been focusing on in our podcast is mental well-being and everything else, an area that's often overlooked. We were talking. I don't know if you know Peter Gilchrist, the Australian, and he was talking about that to a large degree. Obviously, that it had been largely ignored. So it'd be fascinating to get your views on that later. But for the moment, as we said before, yes, you shameless attention seeker that I am, but you've gazumped me. And you've got what's his name out of the Batman? Two-Face. So I'm not calling Richard Rawlings two-faced, because that would be outrageous. and property industry, I would pick me up on that. But Richard, do you want to give us a clue as to this wonderful? And I think it's quite a cool look, actually.
Well, it is two-faced. It is two-faced, and there's a very deliberate reason for that kind of links into what I want to speak about this morning. The thing about this morning is when we go back to work, whether you're already back yesterday or you're going to leave it a while yet, whenever you come back, what is the fresh thing you're going to do? What is the thing that's going to kickstart your business? Because if we carry on in the way that we have been, and that's fine, because many agents are very good, you're going to get a few listings, you're going to do a few sales, you're going to make some money, and that's fine. But we know it does take time to get to that stage and build that pipeline. What I want to do is short circuit that whole system and recognize that there has been an opportunity right underneath our noses that is actually the other side of agency. We're sales agents, we act for sellers on that side of the coin. What about acting for buyers as a revenue stream, as a whole new revenue stream? It is right there for the taking. I've been banging on about this for a while, and some of my clients are already doing it, but I'm now formalizing it. I'm actually introducing a whole seminar about it and how to integrate a buyer representation service into your existing estate agency business. Because it used to be the domain of the search agents, and the sort of Henry Pryor of this world, and that's fine. But where do they get their clients from? Well, if we were doing it, where do we get our clients from? We've already got them. They're right there in our database, hundreds and hundreds of buyers. So I'm going to show you the maths of it. I'm going to show you just a snapshot of who it's suitable for, which is not everybody, and where the opportunity lies. So I'll kick off.
Well, look, I mean, I think this is one of those classic areas there, isn't it? Reimagining your business. Figure out if this could be a key part of your strategy going forward. So to the great cheers of the audience, I will now silence and mute myself, and I will hand over to you and have a great presentation, and we'll catch up with you afterwards.
Fantastic. That's great, Simon. Thank you very much. So there's no pink and there's no drink. So Simon is definitely not here. We're going to leave Simon behind and pick up with him a little later on. Okay, I'm sorry to steal common images and not take advantage of this desperate situation, and certainly saying thank goodness, thank God and thank you for our wonderful NHS. So I'll definitely start off by saying that, but I have stolen the graphics, and and despite all the confusing messages of the government, I want to make a very clear message. I should be a politician. I want to be very clear about this. We're looking at a post-virus re-entry plan that is buyer representation now, alongside what you already do. And it's really, really smart. And I'll show you how it all works. Firstly, why buyer representation at all? Because surely we represent sellers. And that's fine. That's cool. I get that. That's where we're coming from. The thing is, though, that the vast majority of the time, we fail to sell to our current buyers. You've got all these buyers, but according to my research and working with my clients and others, it seems like typically, if you look at all the buyers you actually have registered with you, eventually you're only going to sell to 5% of those buyers. And that's it could be harsh and say, you know, that's a massive failure. But actually that is the fact. And that's possibly why we don't treat our buyers particularly well, maybe because we know at the end of the day, they're probably not going to buy from us. Unlike in other parts of the country, the world, where it's done slightly differently. With buyer representation, there is a better chance of actually making a fee, and you can do it faster as well. And I'll show you how that works. So it's certainly very good for business, because on the basis you only sell to 5% of your buyers, if you can convert just another 5% only of your current applicants into paying buyer clients, well, it stands to reason you've doubled your revenues. And that is a wow factor. That's a realization, my goodness me, that is the other side to the face, isn't it? The other side to the coin, that actually it's right there for the taking, and we've never recognized it before. And I'm going to show you how to do it, or go part way to how to, so it's a whole half-day seminar with all sorts of documentation and everything, but I want to go through the guts of it firstly. So it's great business, and it's right there. So let's just do a little example snapshot. Let's say you've got 550 applicants on your books. This is a little exercise I did with an agent the other day. 550 applicants on their books. About 5% actually buy it through you. Maybe more, maybe less. Do your own figures, but let's take it at 5%. So that's 27 people who buy through you, and 523 who don't buy through you. Now let's say, I'm guessing half of those people are tourists. They don't buy at all. They're just looking around. They never actually get around to buying. So let's just scrub half of those. That still means there are 261 people who are going to buy through your competitors. And that means you're not making any money on those deals. You're not involved in those transactions. There's no reputation enhancement. There's no exposure. There's certainly no revenue. You've got a great relationship with those buyers, but you're saying, sorry, haven't got any property for you. Bye-bye, go and buy through somebody else. Or they'll do that naturally. Because, of course, they don't care who they buy through. They just want to buy the right property, of course. Taking those 261 people, if we go down and say, well, look, let's say how many of those are going to be serious and able? It's going to be 30 to 40% of those who are serious and able buyers. That's 102 applicants. Now, if you can convert about 30% of those, and my research suggests you should be able to, and that's breaking it down, those who are actually going to sell, they're serious, they're able, they're keen. These are your hot buyers. You can convert 30% of those. That's another 31 extra clients. Now, with buyer representation, there's also a higher chance of a transaction actually happening. Because if you think about it, you've got a regular seller client. They may choose not to sell. They might take the house off the market. They might sell it through another agent. They might ditch you and give it to another agent, or just have a change of heart, a change of mind, or they might sell it privately, or something could happen. So let's say there's maybe a 75, 80% chance, maybe less, of you selling a property on which you're instructed. But if you're instructed to represent a buyer, there's more like a 90% chance of a transaction, because you're only going to sign up hot, willing, and able purchasers. They are in the mood to buy. They are going to buy. They are unlikely to say, we've decided not to sell after we're staying here. These people need to move. They need to buy, and quickly. And so there's a higher chance of a transaction with a buyer than there is with a seller client. So that's another 27 sales. That's 100% increase, a 100% increase. 100% increase in your business. Now, at the moment, you could say, well, it's 100% of nothing, which I get. But we're going to switch on pretty quickly. All those people who didn't buy and sell before, they're going to pile back in as soon as possible. And it's already starting. Agents I'm speaking to, they've maintained a bit of momentum, and it's starting to pile on now. So I think we're going to be okay. But whatever you were doing before, the great thing is you have got applicants, and you will get applicants as a result of the properties that you advertise, and they are your potential client base.
That's fantastic. Obviously, completely different perspective. So, as an agent, it's been drummed into us over the years that we only obviously act for one party. And again, I think you reminded us there, you have to remember who it is that you're acting for. And I think the reason why agents tend not to make that leap and that shift over to acting for buyers is it's always been drummed into us that we're acting for the sellers. So, in fact, we've actually got a question here from Michael Latterais, who has asked us if, whether you'd advertise this service or whether you'd introduce it as a special option on top. And I guess you want to stay away from advertising that service openly, because that's going to send a message to vendors that perhaps you're wearing two hats too often.
You're absolutely right, David. And I think the market is not yet ready, comfortable enough to see it as a service that everyone's going to offer. Two reasons for not advertising it and splashing it all over your website is A, as you rightly say, you don't want to dilute your key message, which is the usual: we help sellers sell for the highest price, shortest possible time. And that might be a bit confusing until this concept is more deeply entrenched in society. But secondly, the reason why you might want to promote it is to attract potential clients. You don't need to do that. You already have the potential clients, and you already have a relationship with them. This is not cold calling. So you've got advertising, cold calling, warm calling. This is hot calling. These are people who know, they know you. They're happy to have your call. They've given you their details. There's no GDPR issues. They're right there. So it's just converting a small proportion of the people you already have in your books to client status. So you're absolutely right, David. And thank you for the question, Michael. I personally would not be advertising it. I wouldn't need to.
Okay. We've got another, I think it's more of a comment here. Simon Hawksley has chipped in that he offers standalone agency so that there's no conflict, and therefore they can advertise that freely as much as they like. But talk to me, it's interesting that you sort of anticipated some of the questions that I've seen online. One of the main questions is, how are other agents going to swallow this? So when you approach them and say, hello, I'm a competing agent, but by the way, I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. X, and I am their agent, and I'd like to negotiate on this sale. As an industry, we're extremely paranoid when it comes to competition and sharing details with other agents, and there's very little meaningful collaboration on a day-to-day basis. Although this period of COVID has been fantastic for sharing, I'm pretty sure that we'll all go back to where we were before. Your tips for that first conversation with that agent?
Yeah, good question there. One of the things I have in my document pack is a letter or an email to send to competing agents explaining what you're doing and that they may well be hearing from us with buyers in the future. Ideally there will be a mind shift in this as more agents get it. And when I've shared this around and on training courses and things, and I've asked agents, what would you do if another agent phoned and said they had a buyer paying to put this property? They've said, fine, that's great, because more chance. Our job is to sell that house. Our duty is to let anybody around who's there. Some of them say, well, tell me who the buyer is, and I'll see if they're on our books. That's fine. You say, yeah, it's Mr. and Mrs. Fordham. They may well be on your books, but I'm still representing them. So if you want to show them around, that's fine. You can show them around, but I'm going to come with them. So it's a much more transparent thing. But as I say, if an agent says no, in a way, that's quite a good opportunity to highlight that negligence with that agent's client. Because normally you can't really, particularly in Scotland, you can't go and approach another agent's client in that way, and particularly in view of the liability for dual fees and that sort of thing. Well, you can obviously you can sort of prospect and everything, but in this instance, you can just knock on the door and say, I'm not after any fees. There is no potential for dual fee liability at all, because I represent this buyer. I happen to be an estate agent, and sometimes I represent sellers, sometimes I represent buyers. And it's a really good way of getting into your competitors' instructions, by the way. So that agent should accompany.
Okay. I've got a question here from Mary. She's asked, are buyers ready for this service? They're so used to being ignored after viewing. So I guess just to elaborate on that a little bit further, a lot of agents are not particularly great at realizing that the buyers are your next potential client, and that therefore you should be really nurturing that relationship with them. And we tend to treat them as a sort of a means to an end. So we get them into a property. If they don't want it, we don't talk to them again, and so on. So I guess it's going to take a shift in thinking from an agent.
I think it's an interesting point you raised there, actually, David, about buyers are used to. People don't move house frequently enough to be used to anything. We are assuming they are used to it. So let's just knock that bit on the head. Buyers are used to getting a poor service. Now, buyers expect a great service, and they're disappointed if they receive a poor service. But if the question was, are buyers ready for this? Won't most buyers say, why do I need that? I can get it for free with a regular estate agent, even though they're not technically getting that service. I would absolutely agree with that. Most buyers will not go for this. I'm only talking about the 5% who will. Just as in the same way, in your area, most sellers do not sell through you, and most buyers do not buy through you. And most of your applicants will not take this service either. We're not working on the numbers of most. We're working on the numbers of just 5%. You might have a 5% market share. You might sell to 5% of your current buyers. I'm just saying, secure this service with another 5% of the remainder, and you've doubled your revenue. So it doesn't, most people are not going to go for it. That's fine. It's a numbers game that applies to every aspect of what we already know.
Questions still coming in thick and fast on Q&A, but we've got one from Emma Bruce over here that says, what if the competing agent already has the buyer we're representing on their books and are registered with them? But I guess we've answered that. It doesn't conflict, does it?
They're not a registered, they may be a registered buyer, but they're not a client. They may well be on that agent's books as well. And that agent is the agent that's offered them the property. We're the agent that's helping them buy it. So, as I mentioned, we're not a search facility. That's not the idea. We're not the effective cause of sale because we found the property for them, whereas the regular seller's agent, we found the buyer for the property. It's not like that. This is beyond that. This is helping somebody move. This is offering them a negotiation service and all the other things we've mentioned. So they may well have them on their books, and that's okay. But instead of them trying to extract as much money as they can out of them, we're there to protect the buyer, so that the buyer can get a reasonable price in that property. So each again, it's a divorce lawyer, each party having a lawyer to defend their position.
So I want to thank you. Obviously, Simon's run off mid talk, but on behalf of Simon and everybody at Kerfuffle, thank you very much for the talk. Your details in if people want to contact you, I'm sure you're registered on the Kerfuffle site as well. But your website is posted just behind you, isn't it? Rawlings.info.
Yeah, go to that. It'll take you through to a state agency insight, or just email me at richard@rawlings.info as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Not at all, Dave. Thanks very much.
Care,
Enjoyed it.
Take
Cheers.
Care. Bye-bye.
Bye.